Yeah, hello, evening, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Yeah, we're coming towards the end of the semester. Things are kind of getting a bit rushed and a bit stressful, but one thing at a time, hey? We can do it. We've got this one. I've got confidence in you. You trust me, and it's going to be an all-round win. So for the moment, I'm going to leave Learning Unit 5, and I'm going to jump ahead to Learning Unit 7. Right. I had this idea a couple of weeks ago, and I've tried it on campus, and I think it's actually working better because there's more continuity in terms of the concepts and the types of questions. So it all kind of goes together quite nicely. So Learning Unit 4 is where we first start to look at costs like direct materials, direct labor, and factory overheads, which we can also call manufacturing overheads. So we add those three together and we get product cost. So then in Learning Unit 5, the section that we haven't done yet is how you deal with overhead costs. So there are many, many different ways of trying to allocate parts of a large overhead cost either to a product or to a job. And now, what is a job? A job is just where a business makes a batch of units for a customer, generally on request. So it's just a collection of units. It's a batch, it's a job. Okay. So how are we going to work out the cost of a job? Same way, basically. We're going to add direct materials, direct labor, and some overheads. But how are we going to sort out the overheads? It's going to be on the basis of the predetermined overhead rate that first pops up in Learning Unit 5. And I said we would do it in a better context in Learning Unit 7, which is right now. Okay. So I'm going to put up a question. Well, it's actually not so much a question as I've called it a worked example. But you know what I mean. Let's just get it. This one. There we go, nice and big. So let's explain a few things. In activity-based costing, which is in Learning Unit 5, that's one way to work out a rate. Also in Learning Unit 5, there's what we call the predetermined overhead rate. So it's done differently, but at the end of the day, we calculate a rate. And then when we have got that rate, we are going to use it to apply overheads. Then we will add it to the two other elements of the direct materials and the direct labor. So just to mention before I forget, I have uploaded the overview for Learning Unit 7 this afternoon. I've put up 2 revision exercises for you to practice. I made a folder for the notes, but I just didn't get round to actually sorting them out, being rather too busy marking and doing ask tasks and whatnot. Right. So I just want to type up what I put there, what I said, sorry. We're going to say, we're going to calculate a rate. And I'm just going to call that the overhead rate, OH. And I'm going to say, from Learning Unit 7 job costing, it is budgeted manufacturing overheads, and we're going to divide that by the quantity of the budgeted base. So the budgeted manufacturing overheads are always given in the question, and then when it comes to the base, we can have various things. We can either use units of products, in which case it will be so many rand per unit. It can be labor hours, in which case it will be so many rand per hour. It can be on the basis of machine hours, so many rand an hour, or it can be labor cost, in which case it will be a percentage, or it can be materials cost, in which case that will be a percentage. Okay, so that's all explained for you in Learning Unit 5 and again in Learning Unit 7. So trust me, it is just a duplication. Okay. So once we have calculated the rate, then the next thing that we need to do is we need to apply the overheads. And how are we going to apply the overheads? We're going to take the rate that we have just worked out, and we're going to multiply it by the quantity of the base. So let's say we've worked out 10 rand, and let's say it's on the basis of machine hours. So that'll be 10 rand per machine hour. Now, to apply the overheads, we just look at the question, and if the question says there were 200 machine hours, we'll say 200 hours times 10 rand gives me my overheads. And you'll do the same regardless of what the business uses as the base. Okay. Then I just want to type something else in which could possibly help you over here. We're going to say it's direct materials plus direct labor. Oops, sorry, I forgot about the caps. Plus direct labor plus applied overheads. That's usually what we're going to do. But sometimes, as in this question, that's why I picked this one, there might be some kind of cost that we incurred in the previous period. So I just need to remind you here of an important fact in accounting, that matching principle. You can only recognize and include a cost in the period in which the product is completed and it's sold. So let's say that we are doing the cost for, let's say, May. And let's say that the month before, being April, jobs were started, but they were incomplete. Now comes May, we continue, we finish them, so we're going to carry those costs forward. That is called work in process. So work in process just means semi-finished goods or incomplete. So I'm going to add something in here. So if I can get it in there, it would be work in process plus those other things will actually give me cost of the job. Now that's exactly what we're going to do here. Right. So what kind of a question could you get? Right, it's quite a long-winded story here. So definitely you can get this. Calculate the cost of the jobs completed. Okay. Another one would be calculate the closing work in process. So what that means is, I will just type it there for you. This one means incomplete. Then something else that we could work out is this. This is a nice one. Net income. We could also be asked to do the closing balance of finished goods, and then a typical one at the end. In fact, every question on this section includes this, whether the overheads were over or under applied. So let me just explain for you there, seeing as we're on this one. We're going to say, even though we haven't done the calculation yet, we're going to say if the applied ones I don't think this will let me use, oh, yeah. If the applied overheads are greater than the actual ones, then we're going to say that we applied too much. So therefore, we will be over applied. So once we've done our calculation, we're going to add together all the ones that we have applied. We will read the question, and it will tell how much the actual one is. So we subtract, we find the difference, and then we say which way around it is. If, however, it's the other way, if the applied ones are less than the actual, then that means that we under applied them. So it's always nice to start with an overview and keep it simple, because sometimes I find when we get stuck into a long question, you can't see the wood for the trees. Okay. So when we get a question like this, okay, it's very important that we take special note of how many jobs there are, and we've got to sort the jobs into those ones. So this is something important. Those ones that are complete versus incomplete. So that would be some notes that you would make for yourself. Okay. So the finished ones versus the unfinished ones. Then something else that we will look at, I'll just have to maybe type it here. We're going to look at the units produced compared to the units sold, because that will affect the costing as well as the sales. Okay. So that's basically it. Should we make a start? Right, so the first thing we've got to do is we've got to look to see how many jobs we've got. So let's start here. We've got job. I'm just going to forget the letters, the numbers. Sorry, I'm just going to go letters of the alphabet. We've got D, we have got K, we have M, and we have G. So this is the cost when? During August. But now if you pop up here to the top, you can see some other information. This was the cost of jobs, and this relates to the end of July. So that's going to tell me that those are the costs that are going to be carried forward. So these here are going to be my opening work in process. So you see only 2 of the jobs have got costs carried forward. Okay, the other 2 not. Okay. Then we got to see which ones are finished. So we're going to go have a look down here. And it says here, the only job still in process was M. All the other ones were finished. So now this is going to give us a bit of a clue. So M is the incomplete one. So that will be what we're going to cost over there, which means that which are the other ones? We have D, K, and G. So D, K, and G, we're going to cost in that part. And then obviously these ones here, because they are complete, those are the only ones that we can include here when we come to do the sales. Right, so we're going to work on that principle that I said at the top here, like this, yeah, there. We're going to identify the jobs that have work in process, and we see it's D and G. Then we are going to take that and we are going to add the costs that come up during the actual month for D and G and K. Remember, for the moment, we're leaving out M because it's not finished. So I'm going to show you how you're going to set it out. So here we go. We're going to do columns for D, K, G. only D and G have opening work in process. So which amounts are we going to use? Have a look here. It's split into the three elements: materials, labor, overheads. But if we add all of that together, we're going to get 6,930 for D. We add the three bits together for G, and we're going to get 20,240. So here's how we start. There. K didn't have any costs carried forward, so we leave it. Okay. Then we're going to come to the costs incurred during August, and we're going to look at D. So the materials is 48, and the labor is 900. So let's deal with that. There is the material, there's the labor. Now we're going to do exactly the same for the others. So just to avoid too much scrolling all over the place, these amounts there in the purple come straight out of the information in the table. So there's my materials and labor for K. There is my materials and labor for G. Now, the important thing, and in fact, this is the first of the calculations we have to do, is this, the overheads. We are going to now apply the overheads. So we need to read the question to see how the overheads are applied. And whatever it says, even if it's something maybe that we didn't expect, you just do what it says. So the most likely event in the exam would be labor hours or machine hours. But let's look over here. This one. It says your factory overheads are applied at a rate of, here, 15% of the total direct cost. So what is the direct cost? It's going to be the I want the direct materials, that's a direct cost, and I also want direct labor. So all I do is I add those two, gives me total direct cost, and then I find 15%. Couldn't be easier. Let me show you. Let's see here for D. There's the 48 plus the 900. We find 15% gives me 855. Same with K. Add together the two direct costs, find 15%. Similarly for G, there's my two elements of direct cost, add them, find 15%. Now we're ready to go. We're going to find the total cost of each of the jobs by adding. So for D, it's the opening work in process plus material, labor, overheads, added together, and we're going to get 13,485. Same for K, it's just adding the three things together and adding the four things together for G because it had opening work in process. So that is very simply how to find the cost of a job. Right, I do believe it's a nice question. Then let's look at number 2. We've already done the hard yards here. The closing work in process, you would have to determine which is the job or jobs that are not finished. So it did tell us over here, and I typed it in, it's M. So do we treat it any differently? No, of course not. We're going to find the cost by doing the same things. Opening work in process, if there is, plus DM, plus DL, plus applied factory overheads. So let us have a look. M did not have any opening work in process, so we don't do that. We're going to look at the costs for M, which are here. Direct materials, 26. Direct labor, 700. Add them together, find 15%. That gives me my applied overheads and add. So there we go. That was the only one we had to work out. Add them together, gets me the cost. And we've done exactly the same as above, but the other jobs were complete. This one wasn't. That's why we're going to call this one closing work in process. Now for the fun part. Right, this bit is really nice. Number C, the net income for the month, or you could say net profit. So we're going to do sort of like a bit of a abbreviated income statement. So we're going to start with sales, from which we're going to subtract cost. And then if there are any other costs, we're just going to keep taking off as many costs as there are, and we're going to wrap up with the net income for the month. But the first thing is going to be the sales. So I think I need to explain for you here something about the sales. Yes. So now, remember I did say at the top, it's important as to how many units were produced compared to how many units were sold. So we do need to, I jumped the gun a bit there, look here first. So here's the information to do with the sales. So we need to notice in each of the jobs how many of the products, in this case cricket bats, how many of the product were produced and how many were sold. So let's have a look over here. D, we produced 16. How many were sold? All 16. So we're going to do that one way. Okay. Then we're going to have a look at one of the other jobs. Let us have a look at G. We made 45. We sold all 45. So I'm now going to say the following, that if all were sold, what are we then going to do? Our sales is going to be the cost that we have just worked out plus a markup percent. So what are we going to do for D? We're going to take the cost and we're going to add 30%. And where did we get that from? It says cost plus 30%. Then we're going to do the same for G. We're going to go to the table where we worked out the cost. All the units produced were sold, so we're going to do cost plus 25% markup. That will give me sales revenue. So let me show you how to do that one. All right, we're going to set up a table once again. You know me, I love a table with columns. And do notice over here, we've only got these jobs. Why? Because these were the jobs that were complete. Remember, we couldn't put M because M wasn't finished, therefore it can't bring in any sales. Okay. And just to remind you over here of the various costs, D is 13,485 and G is 52,670. So all we're going to do here now for sales, do have a look at this. We're going to say for D, the cost plus 30% markup. So times 1,3. All the units of G were sold. So it's cost coming from the table above plus 25% markup. So that's going to give me the 17,000 and the 65,000. But here comes the situation with this one. We're going to be careful with K. Now that was not a good contrast color. Because what happened in K? let's pop up to the question. Very important here in K. We made 30 bats, but how many were sold? 20. So now we've worked out the total cost of K, but we can't add a markup onto that because not all of them were sold. So what we're then going to do, I need to finish my typing over here. We're going to say if they are not all sold, what are we going to do then? Okay. It will be the units sold. Sorry, I'm just moving the cursor here. The units sold times the selling price per unit. And that selling price per unit will be given. Can we find it? Let's have a look. I'm sure we will be able to. Have a look here. It said there, 20 cricket bats were sold. How much? 580 each. So that's the most common sense one, isn't it? 580 Rand times 20 is what we're going to do over here. That gives me 11,600 sales for job K. Add them all together, gives me total over there of 94,969. Okay. What then are we going to do about the cost? Cost is nice. It's already worked out. So remember, from above, we've got the 13,000. Let me just prove to you there. Here, this one. 13,485 for D. 52,670 for G. So there and there. But once again, we have to be a bit careful with which one? K. The reason is because that entire cost here of the 10,097, that applied to all of the 30 bats. But 20 of them were sold, 10 were not. So we can't include the full cost. So what we need to do is apportion it. So we need to work out the relevant appropriate cost for only 20 of the bats, not all of the 30. So the easiest way to do that will be as follows. Either we're going to say 10,097 divided by 30 gives us a cost for one bat times 20 gives me 6,731. Or the way I like to do it is just a habit. 20 over 30 times 10,097 gives me the 6,731. So I leave the choice up to you. So whatever makes more sense in your brain, stick with that. Right. Then we add the three costs together, comes to the 72,886. Now, plain sailing. Subtract that from the total sales revenue, gives me a profit of 22 some change. Then I said, if there are any other expenses, you would just continue to subtract them. Right, so have we got any? Yes, over here, let me show you. See over here, it says marketing and distribution expenses for the month of August, 9,400. So that's pretty much the end of the question. We now go and we subtract that from the profit, and that will give us the net income down here. There. So minus your marketing and distribution expenses gives me a final net income for the month of 12,683. Okay. Can I just see how everybody is liking this question? Can we have some mics on and some comments? Love it? Quite
Loving
like
it,
it? Hate it? Yes, yes,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
good.
so. It's a beautiful question. That's why I thought we're at that stage where we need to give ourselves some positive attitude. So this comes out in the exam. It carries quite a lot of marks. So we're starting now, I think, where we need to start building some confidence. And this is the exact type of question, I think, that's going to do that. So we want to now ride this wave of this nice section. Then, what else have we got here? All right. D. We must calculate the closing balance of which thing? Finished goods. So notice here how this is different to B. B is asking for the job that is not finished. This one is the closing balance of finished goods. So basically this one is going to be the ones that are complete, but not all sold. That's the key word. It's sitting in stock as a finished good. So which is the job that we are talking about? Okay. Not M, because that one wasn't finished. Do you notice there with the K? We made 30, but we only sold 20. So basically, we've got these 10 bats sitting there in the form of finished goods. So we need to calculate the cost of those 10 bats. Right, so how are we going to do that? This is my take on it. I always like to simplify and like to write you some basic notes. So we identify the job. The number of the unsold is the 10. Now we need to transform the 10 into a cost. Common sense, I think, would tell you we need to go now and find the cost per bat. When we've got the cost per bat, then we're just going to go and multiply the cost per bat times 10, and we're going to get that. But all that remains is now, how did I get 336 Rand 57 as the cost per bat? Simple. Lovely. You've got this. Have a look here. Let's go with this one. Here is the job that we are talking about. So this 10,097 was the full cost for the 30. So surely if I divide that by 30, I'm going to get the cost for one bat. And then when I got the cost for one bat, I go and I times that by the 10 that were not sold. So that's where we get this 336.57. Lovely, isn't it?
Cheryl, can I ask?
Yes. Yep.
Let's say now for this one, the 10,097, if we said 10 multiplied by 10 over 30, would we get the same answer, or is it the wrong method to use?
No, exactly the right thing. Yep, you can do that. So there's more than one way to do things. So how you've learned it, how you understand it, or how your brain ticks, you stick with that. So that's exactly the same, yes? Mm-hmm. I would have actually done that, but my class on campus, for some reason, I think the accounting lecturer got them to think along one line, and then that's where they're stuck. I would still do the same thing. I would go 10 over 30 times the cost. Yes, you'll get the same thing. Thanks for saying that. Thank you. Then the last thing, we have to work out if our overheads were over or under applied. So all we got to do here is we got to check out the question for the actual. And have we got that? We do. It's this one here. It says actual overheads for August were 4,150. So we take that as a given. Now it's up to us to sort out the applied ones. We've done it. We don't need to do any more workings, because when we did the cost of the completed jobs, do you remember we did applied overheads? when we did the incomplete one, M, we still did the applied overheads. So we're just going to go and find them in our workings in the table, and we're going to add them together. So can we see any of them? Yes. For D, it's 855. For G, it's 4230. For M here, it's 495. And then there's going to be one more, and that is K. Notice here with the K, this is the interesting one. Those overheads were actually incurred. So that's why we're going to include them. However, when we come to the sales and the costs, we based it on the 20, not the 30. So all we're going to do is we're going to take those amounts here, and you see I just put the letter for the job. We're going to add all of that together, gives me 6,897. Take the actual from the question of the 4, find the difference of 2747. And then lastly, we just have to, for 1 mark, by the way, that's interesting, you get 1 mark there for saying that, and another mark for that. So don't forget, we must include this. So how did I get to over? In actual fact, the overheads were 4,000 something. During the course of production, when we applied on the basis of the predetermined overhead rate, we got 6,000 and something. That's why it was more. So we had the applied exceeding the actual. That's why it's over. Then, in case anybody forgot, I just did a working at the bottom again for job M, but it's absolute repetition. Job M is here, there. So there, my lovely friends and students in finance, is such an important part of learning Unit 7. So I want you to watch this one again, and you need to go and practice. As always, hey, we need to practice. And what are we going to be practicing? Yeah. My revision exercise 1, very similar to this one. Yeah. A slightly different take on it, but still, nevertheless, very good practice. Question 7.2 from the book, and then my revision exercise 2. But out of all of them, which is my recommended one? This one here, the revision exercise 1, because it's along the lines of this one. But please, I want you to still practice how you sort out the rates. There are several questions in the book. I think question 7.1. Yeah. I want you just to do a practice on how here to work out the rate based on all of the different bases. So if it's the units of output, or if it is the labor hours, focus on the labor hours, or if it's machine hours. What would you do then? Okay. Shall I make up a quick example? Yes, let's do something. Let's just go with the flow on this one. Let us say over here that the budgeted manufacturing overheads is, let's just make up an easy number, 10,000. And let's say that the budgeted labor hours, let's say, is 100 hours. How then are we going to calculate the rate? Nice and simple. It's going to be the 10,000 as the overhead divided by the 100 gives us how much? Oops, overshot the mark. What's 10,000 divided by 100? Okay, 100. And what is that 100? It's 100 per labor hour. If it was on the basis of machine hours, you would do the same. And then how would you go and do the next step? Seeing as I started, let me just finish. Okay. The next thing we got to do is we're going to apply the overheads. And how are we going to do that? Remember, it's going to be the rate, which in this case is 100 Rand. Then we would go to each of the jobs and we would see how many labor hours were used in each of the jobs. So let's say the first one is 50. We will do that. Let's say one of the other jobs, let's say that one had 85 labor hours. And let's say there was another job. And let's say that that one had 200 hours. That's all we would do. So you see, we're taking the rates that we've worked out and we're multiplying by the number of labor hours. That's how we apply. We did the same thing here in our question, but on a different basis. Remember, it was 15% of the total direct cost. Right, so I think everybody is just going to really love this question. And if I were you, I would answer this one first in the exam. So please get this one sorted. Okay. If you would like me to upload just this without the recording, I can share this document as well. And you can look at this one together with the revision exercise 1 plus the other ones. Shall we do that? I'll just upload this entire document, and then you can have it in front of you and listen to the recording if you feel that you need to. Or have the blank one in front of you, listen to the recording and do the annotating so that you can, as I've gone along, you can fill in some things and make notes for yourself. Right, so there, lovely people, is where we come to an end for this week. So I'm going to stop sharing. And we're going to come back into the classroom just in time for me to see a thumbs up from Danisha. So I think yes. Oh, goodness. There we go. I didn't see you come in. Keenan as well. Yeah, thanks for joining, Keenan. I know you're here all the time. And Rory Sung has become a regular again. And always, always, Chris and Victor, always there. Kev is 90% attendance. Yes. Right, so this one is good, huh? It's a winner. I think so.
Hi, Sarah.
Yes, hi, goodness.
I think I'm the questioner for the day. Sorry, pardon me.
No, fine. Yes.
Going back to our slide now, where you're doing the calculations of hours and rates. I'm not sure I follow correctly how the question would be structured for us to now be calculating hours and rates. I got a bit confused when we started doing that one.
Oh, okay. So you would always have to apply overheads. Then you read the question, and the question will tell you how to calculate the rate. So it will say that the business uses a predetermined overhead rate based on, and it will tell you what it is. So if it tells you it's labor hours, then it will say the budgeted manufacturing overheads are so much, and the budgeted labor hours are so much. You will then just divide those two and get the rate. And then when you come to the question, you're going to take the direct material and the direct labor cost out the table. Then it's now your job to apply the overheads like we did with the 15%. But all you will do is you will use your rate that you worked out for the labor hours, and you will times it by the number of labor hours. So if you want to have a look at one in the meantime, have a look at question 6, sorry, what am I saying? 7.2 in the textbook. That one, it's based on machine hours. Then I've given you a revision exercise 2 and I think that's based on labor hours. So all you do is the question will tell you what they use as the rate. They will give you the two numbers, you divide them, gives you the rate. Once you've got the rate, you just apply. How do you apply? Take the rate and you times it by the number of that particular thing, which could be labor hours or machine hours. And then you, at the same point, you add the three things together and you get cost of the job. It's just using a different rate. I think I have recordings in the contents folder on that. So what I'm going to do is I'll go find it in the contents and I'll copy it across into the live lessons one. So you can listen to that. Will that help, goodness?
Yes, please, ma'am, please.
Sure, I will most definitely do that for you. And when I do have a few minutes, which is not often, I'll go to the contents folder because, you know, it is a bit higgledy-piggledy because it's like 3 years in the making. All of the ones that I think that you need to watch, I'll copy them into the live one. And then I'll send some message about that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That will be good. Yeah, so this evening was nice and positive. You liked the question, you liked the idea of the recordings, go and try the practice questions. And then we will meet next week and we're going to start learning Unit 6. So it's kind of downhill. There's something more important than the other thing in learning Unit 6. So I'll start with that. And then it just leaves that one creepy thing from learning Unit 5. Then we've covered the content and there's plenty of time then to start with the practice questions and amping up towards the exam. Right, so from my side, that's it. Anybody else want to say anything? Who wants the last word? It's not always me.
I must say, that this section is actually quite close to what we've been doing in accounting 2A with the factory overheads and stuff like that. So I just found it interesting as we were doing the class tonight. Just a comment on my side.
Yes, yes. So I do notice that with my campus class as well. So that's why the people who are doing the accounting and the finance stream, it kind of runs in parallel. So it all fits together very nicely. But we do need to remember that there are many, many different people who do this module. It's a compulsory module for anybody doing commerce. So we have people specializing in strategic management, and we also have marketing people who unfortunately don't do the accounting. So that's why I have to try my best to make it as simple as possible. But you're going to really love this one because you are slightly familiar with it already. Just don't mix anything up. That would be the only thing to look out for.
Sure, I will. Thank you.
Sure. Nighty night then, peoples. We will meet next week.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Good evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Here's everybody. Bye.